Hello, I'm going to walk you through the process of uh, finding a piece of land and pulling out the documents, mainly the GIS mapping, the tax record, um, and the plat. So the main three websites which I normally use are for finding land was Land Watch, Land and Farm, and Lands of America. I didn't use this website too much because they seem to specialize more in huge tracts of land, which I wasn't interested in, or rather, I couldn't afford. So let's go back to this one and let's pick up one piece. I'm going to look at this one, 3 acres in Middletown. I said land, but you can see there is a house on this. The reason I picked this one is very often when we are searching for land, what we forget is sometimes we can get really old houses which you can destroy, which you can take down for less than $10,000 and use that piece of land. This is, even though they advertise it as a great house and a fixer-upper, when you go and see it, you'll realize that really what has to be done is it has to be toned down. So this is an example of a piece which you can purchase and then tear down. As you can see, this has an address here. Some houses, if you just buy land, it might not have an address, but you'll still be able to locate the GIS mapping. Now let's take this address and find where it is on Google Maps. So that's here. It's zoomed in to 2902. These lines which you see is what I talked about in my post. It looks like Google Maps is superimposing the GIS maps on them. I didn't see this on Yahoo or Bing. Now, you will always see that this matches up to what is on the Property Explorer, the GIS mapping. Let's first start with figuring out how we can pull out the tax records. So I did a search on SDAT, Department of Assessment and Taxation for the Frederick County in Maryland, and I click on this. So I have to put in the county name. This is for the state. This is the Maryland website which it shows up. Putting the street address, 2902. This is on Old National Pike. So you do not put things like avenue, street, and lane, otherwise it will not be able to find the land. And this is the land, this is the owner's name, this is where the owner lives. This is not necessarily the same address as the house which is listed. This shows what it is used for. This is not the same as what the land or piece of property is zoned under. So what's important is you find the zoning on the plat and don't just see what it's being used for. This shows the property on the land. This shows the acreage. Make sure this matches to what is provided on the MLS listing. This, by the way, is the account number, is the tax number. So things like district, map, grid, parcel are important pieces of information which you can use for pulling out records. Or if you call the county for any information, these are the numbers they will ask you. I'll go back in the screen, and instead of using the address, you can also use the tax account number. This is the same as property ID or account number, and you can search against that on this website. This information shows the historic transfer of the property. As you can see, this is 145,000, but honestly, it is not worth that much. So you have to be careful about when the land was assessed. So this was obviously assessed when that house was in good shape, or nobody maintained the house and the tax guys don't know about it. The house has become run down, and the actual property is much lower because the house is pretty much useless. And if you buy land like this, you always have the right to get the land reassessed within 30 days of purchase. So it'll reflect on the actual worth of the land. As you can see here, on the listing, it is listed for much less, 85,000. It's probably worth even less than that. and you can see that it only transferred hands once. Sometimes you see the opposite, where the listing is much higher and the value here is very low, maybe just $10,000 or below that. And it's nothing wrong with it. If you look at it carefully, you'll find that very often land has been transferred within the family. It was gifted for some nominal amount. You will also see private subdivisions and uh, properties which are named after, which have the last name of the owner. So the family has owned a lot of land in that area, and they have handed it over to each other at some um, very low price. Really, it's just like a token price to, I guess, avoid high sales tax. So some of these values, you have to take it with a pinch of salt and understand what has gone behind those values. Before you shouldn't look at this and think you're getting a great deal, or look at something which is listed for 10, shows up as 10K on this document, and think you are being overcharged for it. Also note anything here in terms of exempt class, special tax, or agricultural transfer tax. Those are all listed over here. And if there is anything here, uh, do check with the seller's agent what that means. Do not see anything here. I have seen cases where there was no structure on the land, and the listing here shows that there was a structure. So maybe at one point there was, and it got toned down. But be careful and check on all that. Check on the acreage, like I said, and this is the tax account number which you'll be able to use. Now let's go on to find the GIS mapping. So this is the Frederick County maps. So all I did for this is I put Frederick County GIS mapping, did a search, I get this link. You should do the same for whichever county you're working with. And then you click on this property explorer. I'm not going to do this now. I already have the page open because sometimes it takes quite a long time. The one problem with the property explorer is you cannot search based on your address, so you have to really zoom in. And what I then do is I use the help of I use Google Maps to zoom in and to understand where it is. So as you can see here, you can see some Middletown is here, and you see some big names of roads. So this is Palmer Road, and this hook right here. So if you zoom in, you see the Palmer Road here, Middletown, and the hook. As you can see, this is a fairly slow website. So you found the land over here. I'm kind of speeding up, but you get the rough idea of what you're supposed to do. Now, many pieces of land will not have an address associated with it, but if you go to the listing of a property, there'll be map property. So when you click on that, you'll have an approximate location. Be careful because sometimes they're a bit lazy about marking it correctly. So it'll be in the approximate area, but it won't be the right area. So it might be on the wrong side of the road, or it might be few blocks away, but it should be approximately right. You can then match up the acreage to anything which shows on the mapping, and I'll show you how. So if you, where was I? See, it's so easy to lose. Okay, let me zoom out again. Palmer Road. So this is the land. So what you have to do is click on, this is the screen which will first come up. Then you click on parcel identifier. I'm assuming every county does it a different way. And then you say OK because it wants you to click on the parcel. This is a parcel you're interested in. And If you zoom in a bit further, it should even put in the addresses. So you might find the number. It shows location. So here you see 2902 is the address, and that shows up here. For raw land, you're not going to have anything like this. It might not even have an address assigned, but you locate it based on the rough marking from the map property. And then you match up any property which has the same acreage. And sometimes this listing might also give you a plat view or a capture of the GIS view, and then you come back and match the shape. Now on the left, you should see both the tax record, which I showed you on the SDAT. So if you click on this, you're going to see what's here. It used to be a different kind of record, but looks like now they've linked it up to the state tax record. The plat is not available here. In this case, you will have to reach out to planning and zoning to get the plat. You should also get it from the seller's agent, but always rely on what you get from the county. The only reason I try and pull it up from the seller's agent is to understand how serious they are about selling the land and if they're providing me with the right information. Typically, if a plat is available, there'll be a link here and you click on it, and then you can download it in the form of a TIF file. Now, I have opened up 3 plats here because those are important. These are random plats which I felt convey different kinds of information which you're supposed to look for. For example, look at this plat here. This is a plat of a land, and then unfortunately my cursor doesn't show up, but I'm going to look at the notes here at the bottom, and if you look at note number 1, site is zoned RC, resource conservation, you have to find out what it means for your county. But this is the zoning. What's written on the plat overrides everything else. Septic is usually marked like this. If you can see on the right, my mouse hair, typically a square, or sometimes it's the 4 corners are marked up. Then look at item number 7. It says houses must face the common driveway. So you shouldn't buy the land thinking you can build a house facing a different direction. What else? Okay, look at item 13. No more than 40,000 square feet, which is about 1 acre of forest, can be removed for building. Now, if you look at this plot, this is a plot which actually, this is one of the pieces of land we had gone to see. And if you look at this on top, you see the graded off section which says Potomac Edison right of way. That is actually part of the land and constitutes part of the acreage they're selling. But you cannot use it because when you walk up to the land, you'll find that there is overhead electric lines. Right below that on the right, you see is where the septic area is marked. So when you go and look at the land, take this information with you so that you have an idea. So if um, that area where the septic is marked invariably is the best lot, it's flat, it perks well, it's good soil, and you might be under the impression that that's where you'll put the house, and the rest of the land might not be that easy to build on. So take this information with you. Let me try one other. Now, this was another piece of land. I just have 1 minute left. This one has a forest easement, and that is set aside for forest conservation. And as you can see, there are sections on the lot which says usable. So even though the actual plot is much bigger, because the rest of it is set aside for forest conservation, the usable piece of land is really small. Now, one last one is this one, which has okay, look at item 4 in this. Future access to track 2 and track 3 must comply with all local and state regulations regarding site access. You have to be careful about what that means, so because that could potentially cost you a lot. So these are some of the things you have to make sure you read the plat in detail. That's what I'm trying to say.